They just sit on their asses and hope.
Saira, good to see you. Do you need anything? It was stitched into the blanket they found me in near that village. I don't really know if it is my actual name, but I had nothing else to go with, so it stuck. Yes, it is. Master Tyrus, my foster father. He was half Kyranian, as you might have guessed already. Some words just stuck around. Well, what should I think about them? They're disquieting. Speaking of which, recently there's been word from the League of Apothecari up north. They say that their studies on the Red Madness haven't borne fruit yet, and that it is like no disease they've ever encountered. Honestly, that has rid me of the last of my doubts about the cycle being real, just as the Grandmaster said. Let's just hope we can find out how to stop it. Tattoo? Oh, of course, you mean my mark. I've had that for as long as I can remember, and I don't have the slightest idea as to how I got it. It does. You're the first to tell me that, but thanks, I guess. No, it isn't. It's just there, that's all. That's what Tyrus said too, but if it has a meaning, it's obscure. I couldn't find anything in the books, and the Magisters couldn't put their fingers on it either. Not without leaving a bad scar, at least according to the Apothecari. And even if that weren't the case, I don't know if I'd want it gone. It reminds me of something. Well, as I told you, I was never very popular with the other novices. You know, the novitiate was very challenging. The Magisters only rarely gave us days off to contemplate, as they called it. The others usually used it to go to the tavern to gamble and drink. I never really liked that kind of pastime, and I still don't. I've never really thought about things like that. You know, life in the temple is quite secluded, and I doubt there are many men or women who would find my way of living attractive. But forgive me, that's very personal. I don't really want to talk about it. That's true, but when I feel the need to relax, I prefer taking a stroll or spending time in the baths. Whatever secret there is about relaxing to loud music, raucous shouting, and alcohol is beyond me. That's convenient, actually. I think I still owe you an explanation. Yes, but let's talk somewhere else. Come on. So sorry for all the secrecy. I just didn't want anyone else to listen in. Well, that moment when I neutralized the leader of the bandits in Old Dothelgrad, I'm sure you noticed that I was different then. Upset. You choose your words carefully, Saira. I appreciate that. I'll make this quick. There is something about me that you don't know. That no one knows, actually. Do you remember what I told you in the curarium about the destroyed village? Well, I wasn't entirely honest with you. Not all of it, no, and it's true that I don't know how I ended up there. But I remembered something just before I regained consciousness. Some kind of vague memory. A feeling coupled with an image. It's hard to describe because it didn't last very long, but I saw myself, but I was somehow above the rooftops, as if I flew. Below me, I saw all the chaos, the dead, the fire, the devastated houses, and I somehow felt hot, but from inside, as if my blood was boiling. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? I'm sorry, but I don't know how to describe it better than that. It was something that actually happened, I'm sure of it. But the memory, it was somehow blurred. Like a dream, but a very vivid one. Nothing. I woke up, and from there things happened just as I've already told you. But that's not really what I'm trying to get at. In that memory, when I saw all those dead bodies and all that destruction, I felt satisfaction, pleasure. As if all that suffering, all that pain was the most exhilarating thing I'd ever seen. Well, I didn't know what to make of that memory myself for quite a long time. But then, things happened that made me understand. There is something inside my head, Saira. Some kind of second soul, an entity. Most of the time it sleeps, but there are situations in which it wakes up. Mostly when something atrocious happens or has happened. Blood, pain, death. Whenever I'm confronted with these kinds of things, it tries to... I don't know how to put it. Tries to take control of me, and then things like Alt-Dathulgrad happen. It's never managed to completely take me over, and it hasn't gotten as far as it did in Alt-Dathulgrad for a long, long time now. But that memory from the village, I think that is what happens when I let myself go completely. Yes, it is immense, Saira. I can feel it every time it is trying to take me over. I don't even want to think about what would happen if I were to give in completely. If that name seems fitting to you, then yes. But I think we both know these stories about ghosts taking over the living are just stories to scare the common folk. If it helps you, think of it as some kind of temptation. One that's just waiting for the moment when I am too weak to contain it. I figure. Listen, what happened in Old Dothelgrad, I never should have let it come to that. But that moment when he charged me, the blood on his sword, I just couldn't contain it. And when I gave in, when I hacked him into pieces, I simply felt so thrilled, complete. I was naive to believe it would never get that far again. Naive and stupid. But do you see now? This is the reason why I train so hard, why I always try to control my emotions no matter what people do or say to me. This creature inside me, it's always on the hunt, and the only way I can keep it at bay is by controlling both my body and spirit 100%. Just one moment of carelessness. That's all it takes. I don't know. And truth be told, I'm not sure I want to. I don't know, Saira. Believe me, I've asked myself that question more than 100 times. And as much as I hate to admit it, yes, there's a chance it did. I'll never find out. Only Master Tyrus, my foster father. He taught me how to contain it by controlling my thoughts. And he also advised me never to tell anyone about it, which I haven't, until today. I don't know, probably because I was afraid you'd tell someone else about what happened in Old Dothelgrad and that would raise suspicions. A coward's move, I know, but it was the best solution I could come up with. I'm sorry. No way that I know of, at least. Who should I ask? The apothecary? There are two ways that would go. Either they would ridicule me, or they would take me seriously and report my condition to the Order. Neither way helps me, and who knows what the Order would do if they found out, especially as strained as the situation is right now. Well, what would be the alternative? Transcribe Pyrean books like the Magisters do all day? Or drop out entirely and pour hot water for the upper city's noblewomen? Look, Saira, as you already pointed out, there is a chance that this thing inside me is responsible for the massacre in the village. And if that's true, I definitely have a lot of repentance to do, don't you think? And even if it isn't, I want to change things, to make the world at least a little bit better. And yes, I do realize that this means a lot of hardship and hard work for me, but I'm not afraid of that. Do you know why? Because that's what's missing in this world. So many people just talk, and never act, because that would mean that they'd have to actually endure something for what they believe in. Yes, I know. Sorry, I shouldn't have gotten so emotional. I just wanted to clear this up. Anyway, the one thing I ask of you is to keep silent about what I've told you. It will never come to something like that again, I promise. I'd like some time by myself now, and thanks for listening.
Transcribe verse 80 100 times. The sky can rain fire. Magisters never change.
Times. Sky can fire. Magisters never change.
Walk blessed, brother. The prophet, huh?
Just can't bloody believe it.
Oh, hey. Prophet?
So what's so spectacular about this? To me, our pal here looks like your average crypt corpse.
Well, he isn't. Do you see this marking on his forehead? That's a symbol of the Ashian, one of the two priest castes who reigned over the Pyrean Empire like the Lightborn did over Vin. He was no high priest, but more than an acolyte. Let's just hope he participated in the manufacture of the sigil stone back in the Pyrean era.
Well, hoping can't hurt. But look, we have company.
Delvareg, Archmagister, how's the situation?
Walk blessed, Grandmaster. We're fine. Everything is ready. So this is him?
Yes, this is the Prophet.
Interesting. Truly interesting. I imagined you to be different. I'm Lexiel Marigil, Archmagister of the Holy Order. Pleased to make your acquaintance. So, where do we start? Has the Grandmaster already informed you of the goal of this mission? Correct. Now you're wondering, how will this be possible? This is where the Word of the Dead comes into play. An old relic we'll need to find.
The Word of the Dead? I thought that was a legend.
No, it exists. And we also know where. Just so you understand, the Word of the Dead is an artifact that allows entering a deceased person's mind to relive his last memories as if they were your own.
And you want to do just that with our frozen pal here. This is the grand plan, right?
Right. You'll need to locate the Word of the Dead, teleport the Pyrean's body to you, and then enter his thoughts. And there you'll have to look for the words of the ritual. True, but we're talking about a different form of magic. It works similarly to the forbidden school of entropy. That's right, but the priest himself did, and according to the legend, this should allow you to understand. You're telling me. I myself feel like a myriad in a toad's pond. But alternatively, we'd have to excavate every ruin on Vin and hope that some priest left one of the scrolls behind. Well, we only lack the last words of this ritual. What you have to look for is an ornamental scroll, which looks just like the one on the drawing I'll give you in a moment. All you have to do is remember the glyphs and the scroll, then write them down once you're back in the waking world. Well, this is...
There's an old manor in Enderal's west that belongs to an old collector of artifacts. We received a tip that the word of the dead is in his possession.
Hang on. Are you talking about this odd fellow with the puppets? The aged man from the folk song?
I am. You won't take it. It will be enough to find it. Use it on the Pyrean and then leave. You will travel to the manor with Dalvarek, wait for nightfall, and then introduce yourself to the aged man as a fellow collector of artifacts. Then you will offer him this brooch, and if all goes well, he will offer you a quarter for the night to negotiate in the morning. Then it's all a matter of timing. Sneak out of your room, look for the word of the dead, and teleport the Pyrean to you. Then you'll flee. There must be no violence, no matter what happens. A good question, but no. The aged man is special, so to speak. Even the Lightborn ordered us to let him live in peace. The Black Guardian knows why. So, if we have to trick him, we will at least do it inconspicuously, which is why you and the mercenary are well suited for the task. No one will connect your faces to the Holy Order. Archmagister?
Yes, well, that is a good point. We don't know, because we don't even know what the artifact looks like. But, how goes the saying? The proof of the eating is in the pudding.
We'll manage somehow. And even if we don't, it definitely sounds like an adventure.
It's a great responsibility, be aware of that. But I have faith in both of you. Now get going as soon as you can. This mission will be fruitful. I can feel it.
Whew. And there they go. Yep, just meet me at the Myrids Tower at the Western Cliff. I'll go grab my stuff now. Huh? Keep your chin up.
Yes? Hello? I do? Thought I had gotten rid of it by now. But yes, I'm originally from Nirim. Just like you, as I've heard. Oh, I don't know. Probably because I don't have very fond memories of my time there. You know, if someone would have told you 20 years ago that one day I would be the Archmagister of the Holy Order, you'd have probably laughed in his face. Huh, it's absurd just to think of it. You know, I was a slave there. Yes, you see, I was born into a traveling group of Aeterna minstrels. I never got to know my father, though, and living that way was hard. So my mother eventually decided to burn all bridges behind us and start over. Sorry, I'm babbling. I don't want to bother you with my boring stories. Well, after some days on the road, we met a traveling merchant who gave us a ride to the next village, a small one named Sildren in the Salathan forest. It seemed almost perfect at the beginning. The place was quiet, and my mother found herself a job as a weaver in the local count's castle. One day, however, the count simply stopped paying her, and, well, when she asked for the reason, he told her that we were his property from that moment on, just like that. Why wouldn't it be? We were just a woman and a young son, and he owned both the land and the local guard. We had to serve this Creo, that was the Count's name, for 9 years. It was horrible. No one. We weren't the only slaves he kept, and the villagers were too afraid to do anything. As for Chancellor Baratheon's armies, well, I'd be surprised if they even knew Sildren existed. Pure luck, I suppose. One day, an Enderalayan merchant and his escort passed through the village. They were on their way to Wave Rock to catch a ship from there. And just by coincidence, he saw me crushing some herbs I had found in the forest. That's what I did in the little spare time I had, you know. The Salathan forest is so incredibly rich with plants you have no idea. What I didn't know was that I had found an entire sheaf of God's Tongue. That impressed the merchant so much that he simply bought me. He left her there. Believe me, what he did had nothing to do with mercy. He just saw that there was money to be made off of me. I cried and protested, of course, but 2 months later, our ship arrived in Ark, where he got infected with flesh maggots and died shortly thereafter. Luckily enough, he was a Sublime. And since his relatives didn't know what to do with me once he was dead, they simply asked the Order to grant me the novitiate, which they did. By the left path. Sounds crazy when I tell it like that, and it probably is. But back then, it just happened. I tried, but as you can imagine, my obligations made my options to do so very limited. Only recently, however, word reached me from a mercenary whom I sent over. According to him, Creo is dead, and his castle was deserted. But who knows if he just said that to appease me. I think when all of this is over, I might ask the Grandmaster for permission to travel there myself. And then, who knows? By the righteous path, now I really am babbling. I am sure a man like you has better things to do than listen to the stories of a boring old chronicler. I should probably get back to business. Forgive me. Don't ask. Reconstructing the outer shell was challenging, particularly given the strange metal it is made of, but we found a way to do it. As for its inner workings and what these sockets are for, we are still lurking in the dark. This machine, it's, how should I say, different, otherworldly.
Prophet? Yes? Is it important? Yes? Is it important?
Yes? If it's really necessary, what do you want to know? Yes, but at what price? It isn't just what happens on the outside when it tries to take me over, Saira. At least not just that. It's what goes on inside. My thoughts, my feelings. Imagine you are walking through a forest, all on your own. Then you hear heavy breathing, sobbing, and as you follow it, you find a wounded hunter. He's been mauled by a bear and is now heavily injured and delirious. I, that is the part of me that is myself, would want to help this man, to get him to safety. But the moment I see blood, the smell of death, these other thoughts start invading my mind. Yes, and that sight, it would arouse it. I can't find a better word for it. If I were to give in, it would... Forgive me, Saira. I can't talk about this. I am sorry. Yeah, it's just odd to talk about it like this. If that were the case, I probably wouldn't be here right now, would I? No, it hasn't. Usually it's just thoughts, and they're almost always there. It's as if there's always something lurking in the dark corners of my mind, just waiting for me to give in. It's tough, to say the least. I don't know if you can relate to that. Honest answer? I don't know, and I don't want to know. As I told you in the Scuola, if I really am the one to blame for that massacre in the village, if this memory is real, then the answer to your question is yes. I would transform into whatever this creature is, but it will never come to that. You have my word.
Be careful, my sir. The streets aren't safe at this hour.
Yes? Well, if you believe the farmers, the red madness gets worse and worse. There have been reportings of possessed people walking through the woods and attacking anything that moves. If you ask me, it's about time either the Order or the Apothecary find a solution to this.
Walk blessed, friend. Where are you headed? About myrids. What does there tell? They're beautiful animals, majestic and wild, and dangerous if you're unlucky enough to run into an untamed one. In the time before the Blood Moon Revolt, a long time ago, tame myrids like this one here was a really rare sight. Nowadays, though, they're pretty common, at least here in Enderal. Pity, somehow. I guess that sounds stupid, but I sometimes long for the times my grandfather lived in. Being a myrid warden was far more prestigious back then, and even fared with sublime or keepers. Nowadays, well, you can guess. Riding a myrid has become as ordinary as riding a mule. But, who am I to complain? Oh, well, that's hard to explain. They communicate by clicking sounds. I, as a warden, have been trained to hear them, but you probably can't. And through those clicking sounds, I also tell them where you want to go before you mount them. Obviously, that only works for routes that the myrid already knows by heart. Sure, where to?